You missed a spot, old man. Are you blind or just useless? Barked Gregory Slade, CEO of Magnus Corp, his sharp Italian shoes clicking against the marble floor as he pointed to an invisible smudge. His voice echoed across the vast lobby, drawing the attention of staff and visitors alike. Heads turned, whispers followed. Eyes landed on the man crouched by the staircase, wringing out his mop in silence. The man didn't look up. He was in his late 60s, maybe older, wearing a faded blue jumpsuit with the name Samuel stitched in fraying thread over the left breast pocket. His face was weathered, dark skin creased with lines from years of labor and loss. He wore gloves, and his posture was humble, yet sturdy. The silence stretched. "I'm talking to you, janitor," Gregory sneered, adjusting the cuffs of his $1,000 suit. "Do you not understand English? Or is it part of your job description to be deaf and incompetent?" A few chuckles trickled from the corner near reception, where two junior associates tried to hide their amusement. Samuel remained kneeling, wiping the floor quietly. Then he slowly rose to his feet, back straightening, taller than most had realized. His eyes met Gregory's for a fleeting second, calm and unreadable. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Gregory scoffed. "This is what happens when you let charity cases sweep your floors. Honestly, I don't know why we haven't outsourced this department yet." "I'm sorry, sir," Samuel said finally, his voice low and composed. "I'll take care of it." "Oh, you'll take care of it. All right," Gregory snapped. "Clean it up. Then get out. You're suspended for a week. I don't want you dirtying my building with your presence." There was an audible gasp from a few onlookers. Even the security guard at the door flinched. But Samuel merely nodded. Understood. As he turned to gather his cart, Gregory muttered to no one in particular. Pathetic. The only thing worse than incompetence is old incompetence. Samuel left without a word. But the storm he would unleash had already begun. The next day, chaos rippled through the upper floors of Magnus Corp's headquarters. The board of directors had scheduled an emergency meeting. No agenda, no explanation. Just a time and location 9 OM sharp. Executive conference room. A. Gregory arrived in full swagger, sipping espresso from a cup carried by his assistant, Marla, who trailed 2 steps behind. "Any idea what this is about?" he asked without real interest. "No, sir," but all board members confirmed attendance. Even the silent shareholders. Gregory grinned. "Maybe someone finally died and left me their shares." The doors opened to a tense room. Around the oval table sat 12 individuals, old money, old power, and older secrets. But there was a 13th chair at the head, empty, a glass of water beside it, untouched. Gregory took his usual seat near the front. "All right, let's get this over with. I've got a quarterly report to." The door opened again. Samuel walked in. Gregory's jaw slackened. He blinked, as if his eyes deceived him. "What in the hell is, Mr. Slade?" said Abigail DeWitt, chairwoman of the board, her voice clipped and formal. "Please remain silent, Mr. Samuel Rollins has requested to speak first." Rollins. Gregory turned pale. The name sounded familiar, too familiar. Samuel walked slowly to the head of the table, calm and deliberate, and sat. The janitor's uniform was gone. He now wore a deep charcoal gray suit, crisp, tailored. His hands, though still rough, bore a subtle gold ring with the Magnus Corp insignia, a ring worn only by founding shareholders. "You may begin, Mr. Rollins," Abigail said. Samuel looked around the table, his gaze firm yet warm. "Thank you, Chairwoman. Good morning. Most of you know me by name only. Others remember me from long ago. For the past 23 years, I've chosen to remain silent, to observe, to remember where we came from." Gregory's eyes darted around the room. No one else seemed surprised. They had known, all of them. Samuel continued. "My father, Elijah Rollins, was one of the original 5 founders of Magnus Corp. He passed his shares to me before his death. I chose a different path than most heirs. I studied abroad, lived simply, and returned in secret. I wanted to understand the company from the ground level." His eyes locked onto Gregory. "So I became a janitor. And I watched. Gregory laughed bitterly, rising from his chair. This is ridiculous. Are we seriously entertaining a janitor's delusions? Sit down, Mr. Slade, Abigail snapped, her first show of emotion. Gregory froze. Samuel took out a thin leather folder and opened it. Here is the documentation of my holdings. As of this year, I own 42% of Magnus Corp. The next largest stakeholder owns 9%. Gasps filled the room. That's impossible, Gregory hissed. I began acquiring silent shares 2 decades ago. Slowly, quietly, I allowed others to speak louder, to take credit, to expose their character. He stood and stepped around the table, walking slowly toward Gregory. Do you remember what you said to me yesterday? Gregory's face flushed red, then pale. Would you like me to repeat it? Samuel asked gently, voice like steel wrapped in velvet. No. Then let me say this instead. You are hereby removed as CEO, effective immediately. Pandemonium. Gregory lunged forward. You can't do this. I built this company. I brought in record profits. You're just a damn janitor. Samuel didn't flinch. Correction. I own this company. You were simply paid to manage it. Security appeared behind Gregory. Abigail motioned. Escort Mr. Slade out of the building. Don't touch me, he screamed, shoving papers off the table. This is a joke. You're nothing but a fraud. You'll regret this. As he was dragged from the room, Samuel turned to the others. We have much work to do. Downstairs. The news spread like wildfire. By lunchtime, the company cafeteria buzzed like a beehive. Did you hear? The janitor owns the place. CEO got booted by a mop-wielding billionaire. No way. That guy. I always thought he was just quiet in the maintenance room. Carlos, one of the younger janitors, was crying. He always said we mattered. I thought it was just, nice words. Upstairs. Samuel stood at the window of the CEO's office, formerly Gregory's, now his. He looked out over the skyline, eyes misty. Behind him, Marla entered hesitantly. Mr. Rollins, please, he said, turning. Call me Samuel. She smiled nervously. There's a crowd forming downstairs. Employees. They're chanting your name, he chuckled. That's new. Would you like to address them? He nodded slowly. Yes, I think it's time. The entire ground floor was filled with employees, from interns to department heads. Phones were out, cameras rolling. The lobby, once silent under Gregory's reign, now pulsed with life and awe. Samuel stepped onto the top of the staircase. No mic, no suit, just himself. I know many of you are confused, shocked even. Some of you saw me as nothing more than a cleaner, and I don't blame you. That's what I looked like. But what I learned in these hallways, sweeping your floors and cleaning your bathrooms, was more valuable than anything in a quarterly report. He paused. No one spoke. I saw how people treated those they believed were beneath them. I saw who had kindness and who had cruelty. I saw leaders, and I saw tyrants. His voice strengthened. From this day forward, Magnus Corp will be led with dignity, humility, and respect. Every person, from janitor to executive, deserves to be seen, to be heard, to matter. The applause was deafening. Some wept, some hugged. In the corner, Carlos watched with hands trembling. He changed everything, he whispered, with a mop. But the story was just beginning. The echo of applause lingered long after Samuel stepped down from the stairs. People lined up to shake his hand, to offer thanks, to simply say they saw him now for years. He had walked among them unnoticed. Now, every eye followed him, but as he returned to the executive floor, the real work began. Inside the CEO's office, once a fortress of arrogance, Samuel sat quietly at the desk. It smelled faintly of Gregory's expensive cologne and artificial air freshener. He opened the bottom drawer. Scotch, Cuban cigars, mirror-polished cufflinks, a stash of business cards embossed in gold, all symbols of an empire built on fear, not respect. He placed everything in a box, then turned to Marla, who stood at the door. Have this sent to Gregory's last known address, he said. Marla stepped forward. Mr. Samuel, may I say something? Of course. I'm sorry. I used to think you were just some background figure. I never said a word to you. I was afraid of Gregory, afraid of not fitting in. But I saw the way you worked. You never complained, not even when he humiliated you. Samuel smiled gently. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for staying. She hesitated. What are your plans? I mean, as CEO now. Samuel leaned back in the leather chair. Change everything. That afternoon, Samuel called a town hall in the central atrium. Every employee was invited. No hierarchy. No separation by title or department. Just people. He stood at the center of the circular stage with a simple notepad in his hand. I want to hear from you, he began. This company belongs to all of us now. Tell me what's broken. Tell me what hurts. At first, silence. Then a hand went up. Marketing intern. Nervous. We haven't had health benefits approved in 3 years. My mom has cancer. I couldn't help her because I couldn't afford the copay. Samuel nodded. That changes today. Another hand. Tech support. Gregory used to dock our pay for being 5 minutes late. Even if it was because of elevators breaking down, that stops now. Then a wave. HR, janitorial, counting, done, design, engineers' complaints spilled out like a dam breaking. Bullying, unsafe equipment, discrimination, pay gaps. Samuel took every note. When it ended, he stood. We will rebuild Magnus Corp from the inside out, this time, built on people, not profits. The crowd erupted again, but not from excitement alone, from relief. For the first time, someone at the top saw them. Across the city, Gregory Slade sat in a dim bar, gripping a drink with trembling hands. The TV above the bar was tuned to a business channel. In an unprecedented twist today, Magnus Corp's CEO was ousted by none other than its largest shareholder, Samuel Rollins, the man everyone believed to be a janitor for the past 2 decades. Rollins revealed himself as the heir to founder Elijah Rollins' estate, owning a controlling share of the company. Gregory's face turned purple. He played me. That old bastard played me. The bartender approached. Rough day. Gregory sneered. Shut up and pour. But even drunk, his pride burned. He humiliated me. I'll find something. A loophole. A scandal. I'll take him down. He pulled out his phone and started dialing. Back at Magnus Corp. Samuel was in the archives. The basement no one visited. Dust clung to forgotten filing cabinets like secrets. Marla watched as he rifled through old documents. What are you looking for? She asked. History, he said. My father's letters. The first agreements. The original mission statement. I want to remember why this company started, so we never lose our way again. He opened a folder yellowed with time. Inside, a photograph, 5 men in black and white suits, arms linked, beaming. One of them, a young black man with kind eyes, stood proudly. Elijah Rollins. Samuel's eyes misted. He always said, build something that outlives your name. Marla smiled. And now you are. 3 weeks passed. In that time, Samuel introduced sweeping changes. Salaries for janitorial and maintenance staff were doubled. A fund was set up for employees in financial distress. The executive dining room was converted into a free cafeteria for all. Offices were open to sunlight and shared spaces. Department heads were now required to work 1 day a month in a role 2 levels below them. The company's culture shifted. People smiled more. Doors stayed open. Laughter returned. But Gregory wasn't done. On a cold Monday morning, news broke. A leaked video. Grainy. A man resembling Samuel handing a briefcase of cash to an unknown figure in a parking garage. The headline screamed, Magnus Corp CEO in bribery scandal. Panic rippled through the building. Investors pulled out. Stocks dipped. Anonymous emails circulated. Samuel watched the footage in silence. That's not you, right? Marla asked. Pale. It's not, he said. But it's well made. Gregory hired someone. She gasped. You think he's behind it? I know he is. Within hours. Samuel called a press conference. Cameras. Reporters. Flashing lights. He stepped to the podium. The footage circulating today is a fabrication. I have never bribed anyone, but I understand the fear it may cause. So I invite an independent federal audit of my personal and corporate records immediately. Murmurs spread through the room. I have nothing to hide, he said. But those who fear the truth might. The next day, investigators confirmed the video was a deep fake. Gregory Slade was arrested for conspiracy, tampering, and fraud. Samuel never celebrated. He simply went back to work. One morning, months later, Samuel visited the janitorial locker room. It hadn't changed much. Old lockers, the same linoleum floor. Carlos looked up, stunned. Mr. Rollins, Samuel smiled. Just Samuel. You're still coming down here. Of course. This is where it all started. Carlos fidgeted. I don't know how to thank you. You already have, Samuel said, by staying. He looked around. We're not invisible anymore. Carlos's eyes filled. No, you made a scene. Samuel walked over to his old locker. It was still there. Still had his initials etched into the metal. He opened it. Inside, a worn-out mop. The same one he'd used the day Gregory humiliated him. He took it out, ran a hand along the handle, and said softly, "Never forget where you came from." 1 year later, Magnus Corp had become a global case study. Business schools taught the Rollins reinvention. Employee satisfaction hit 97%. Revenue soared without layoffs. Clients poured in, citing integrity as the reason. And Samuel, he was nominated for Businessman of the Year, but he declined. He chose instead to launch a foundation in his father's name, the Elijah Rollins Initiative for Education, Housing, and Clean Jobs. On the day of the foundation's opening, he stood on stage beside his daughter, Michaela, and his son, Jamal, both now board members. He looked out at the crowd. Some were former skeptics. Some were once invisible, but all were seen. Samuel took the mic one last time. My father started this company with a broom and a dream. I inherited both. I disguised myself not to fool people, but to reveal them. What I learned changed me. And now we changed the world. A standing ovation roared, and Samuel Rollins, once dismissed, once overlooked, stood tall, a janitor, a leader, the largest shareholder of hearts, hopes, and a future remade. The applause thundered through the halls of the Elijah Rollins Initiative's grand opening, echoing far beyond its marble walls. Reporters scrambled to capture every angle. The guests, business leaders, former skeptics, and janitors alike rose in unanimous respect. But for Samuel, it wasn't pride he felt. It was peace. For the first time in decades, his father's vision had come full circle. Backstage, Michaela wiped her eyes and hugged him tight. Dad, you did it. You really did it. He kissed her forehead gently. We did it. And now it's your turn to carry it forward. Jamal appeared next, grinning. People were still whispering in awe when I walked through the crowd. You've turned this company into a legend. Samuel smiled but held up a hand. Don't let it become just that, a legend. Legends live in the past. I want Magnus Corp and this foundation to live in the present. Serving, listening, giving. Jamal nodded solemnly. I will. Then a soft voice spoke from behind them. Mr. Rollins. Samuel turned. It was Mrs. Lindstrom, the oldest employee at Magnus Corp, an 80-year-old records clerk who'd worked quietly in the shadows for 40 years. I just wanted to say, she hesitated, voice shaking, you made me proud. My husband worked with your father. He always said Elijah Rollins was the only man who treated him like a brother. You've honored that. Samuel took her hands. Thank you. That means more than any title ever could. The following week, an unexpected letter arrived on Samuel's desk. Handwritten, wax sealed. It was from Harold Everwin, the patriarch of one of Magnus Corp's former rival firms. Dear Mr. Rollins, you do not know me, but I have watched you. Long before you sat at the head of the table, I noticed your presence in the corners of rooms, the edge of elevators, the shadows of corporate towers. Your silence was not weakness. It was strategy. Men like Gregory Slade believed themselves untouchable. You reminded us all that the ground beneath the highest throne is still swept by a broom. My family would be honored to meet with you. We wish to invest in your foundation and learn how to rebuild our own house of glass. In respect, Harold Everwin Samuel folded the letter quietly. He didn't smile. Not yet. But in his chest, he felt something shift, the beginnings of change beyond his own walls. But with growth came resistance. At a quarterly shareholder meeting, one of the legacy board members, Vincent Harrow, a cold, calculating man, raised his voice. We understand the humanitarian angle, Samuel, truly. But the board must ask, where does philanthropy end and fiduciary responsibility begin? Samuel met his gaze without blinking. Do you mean, when do people stop mattering and profits take over again? Vincent flushed, then chuckled darkly. If you want the truth, yes. There was a heavy pause. Samuel stood, holding the original founding document in his hand, the same paper from the basement archive. Let me read a line from this, he said. The purpose of Magnus Corp is to build industry that strengthens the hands of workers, lifts the common man, and never forgets the soil from which it rises. That's not some bleeding heart dream. That's your signature on it. Vincent, your father's. Actually, the room fell silent. Samuel looked around. We're not just here to turn numbers green on a screen. We're here to lead by example. If that's not the company you want to be part of, you're free to sell your shares. Vincent looked away. Others slowly began to nod. The board, once a wall of resistance, shifted because truth, when spoken without fear, has gravity. Outside the boardroom, life continued to transform. In the janitorial wing, uniforms were updated, better tools, more training, regular raises. But more than that, respect. Samuel began something unprecedented. Every month, he'd eat lunch with one department, no formalities, no hierarchy. One such afternoon, he sat with the loading dock team, munching on chili dogs and cornbread. You ever miss it? Asked Marcus, a stocky man with grease-stained hands. Miss what? Samuel asked, licking mustard from his fingers, wiping floors. That quiet, invisible life. Samuel grinned. Every damn day. The group laughed. You know what IMIS is, he added. The way people underestimated me. It let me see their truth. It revealed character. In the silence, people showed you exactly who they were. That's deep, Marcus muttered. I just like the break room naps. More laughter. Samuel leaned forward. I want you to know this company, from this day forward, will always be built from your floor upward, not my office downward. If you see something broken, say it. If you feel invisible, shout. They raised their soda cans and paper cups to floors and truth. Months turned to seasons. The world took notice. Magnus Corp was profiled in the New York Times, Forbes, and even Time magazine, which crowned Samuel Rollins Person of the Year under the headline, The Janitor Who Cleaned House. He turned down interviews with network giants. He didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be useful. But one appearance he did accept an invitation to speak at a local high school on career day. The gymnasium was packed. Teenagers slouched in bleachers, some on phones, some bored out of their minds. But as soon as Samuel took the mic and said, I was once told to get out of a building because I was dirtying the floors, silence fell. He told them the story, every humiliating detail, every moment he was dismissed, every insult, and how each one became a stepping stone. Don't wait for someone to see your worth, he said. Live it, be it. Whether you sweep floors or own the building, you matter. When he finished, the applause wasn't loud, but it was real. And as he walked off stage, a young girl stopped him, 15, freckles, tears in her eyes. My dad's a janitor, she whispered. I used to be embarrassed, but now, Samuel knelt down and smiled. Your dad is a king. Never forget that. Years later, on his final day as CEO, Samuel stood once more before the Magnus Corp family. White hair now, slower steps, same fire. I walked in through the back door 27 years ago with a mop and no name. Today, I walk out through the front with a legacy I share with each of you. He looked to Michaela, now CEO-elect, and Jamal, head of the Elijah Foundation. My family carries the flame. but you are the fire. Applause, tears, a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. When it ended, Samuel walked through the building one last time. He passed the cleaning staff first, hugged each one, then HR, then security, then reception. Finally, he reached the front doors. Carlos, now head of janitorial operations, met him there, holding something, a mop, old, well used. I kept it, Carlos said, choking up. For when you came back, Samuel took it, held it high like a torch, then stepped out into the sun, and the city bowed. Outside the headquarters, a crowd had gathered. Not just employees, people from the city, old friends, strangers who'd followed the story, children on shoulders, elderly men holding hand-lettered signs. One read, "He swept the floor, then swept in change." The moment Samuel stepped into the light, mop in hand, the crowd erupted, not in noise but in awe. Silence fell, reverent. People didn't cheer immediately. They stood, witnessing something sacred, something real. Then, from the front row, a small voice cried out, "Thank you, Mr. Rollins." Samuel smiled. The wall finally broke. Applause cascaded across the plaza like a wave. He raised the mop one last time, nodded, and whispered quietly, "For every man who was ever unseen." Behind him, Michaela appeared. "You ready to go home, Dad?" He looked at her, the next leader. Fierce, wise, compassionate. "I already am." They stepped into the waiting car, but before the door shut, someone ran up. It was Liam, a young delivery driver who'd worked the night shift for years. "Sir," he panted, "I just wanted to give you this." He held out a small velvet box. Samuel opened it. Inside was a lapel pin handmade, a miniature silver mop wrapped in gold thread. "It's just a gift from all the night crew." Samuel stared at it, then at Liam. "You have no idea how much this means to me. You have no idea how much you meant to us." That evening, the Rollins family sat around their long oak dinner table. No press, no cameras, just roasted chicken, cornbread, and laughter. "Do you remember," Jamal said between bites, "how you used to come home smelling like disinfectant and mop water?" Michaela chuckled. "And still made us cocoa before bed." "I remember," Samuel said, eyes soft. "I also remember lying awake some nights, wondering if I was wasting my life." "You weren't," Michaela said firmly. "You were watching the world. You were preparing." Jamal leaned in. "What made you do it, Dad? Really? Why stay undercover for so long?" Samuel took a sip of his tea. "Because power reveals itself in how people treat those with none. I wanted to know who deserved to lead, who cared, who didn't." He paused. "Also, I wasn't ready to carry the weight yet. I needed to remember who I was without the money, without the name. So I chose the mop. It humbled me. It saved me." They sat in silence for a while. Then Michaela said, "You know what I want to do?" "What?" "Set up a leadership program, not for business students, for janitors, drivers, kitchen staff. I want them trained, mentored, elevated." Samuel beamed. "That's it. That's the future." Months passed. Samuel took on a quieter life, but his impact rippled. He began teaching workshops at community centers. Free. No slideshows. Just a folding chair and a conversation. "I was a cleaning man," he'd begin. "They thought I had nothing, but I had everything that mattered: dignity, vision, patience." At one session, a young man named Terrence approached afterward. "I've been working at the same warehouse for 6 years. No promotion, no respect. I wanted to quit." "Then why didn't you?" Samuel asked. "Because I read about you." Samuel put a hand on his shoulder. "Then here's your first lesson. Respect yourself, even if no one else does. That's how you stay ready for the day they realize you're irreplaceable." Terrence later became the warehouse's youngest ever operations manager. One summer morning, Samuel returned to the neighborhood where he grew up. The buildings were smaller now, the paint chipped, but the heart of it still beat strong. He walked into a tiny corner cafe, sat at the back booth where he and his father used to split a donut every Sunday. The owner, Miss S. Halbert, now in her 80s, shuffled over. Well, I'll be. The richest janitor in the world comes back for coffee, he laughed. Only if you've still got powdered jelly. I've got the same box I bought for you 15 years ago. They sat, talked. She told him how proud the block was, how kids ran around shouting his name. Samuel, she said quietly, they finally see us, because they saw you, but not everyone celebrated across town. Gregory Slade sat alone in a small apartment, hair graying, eyes sunken. He watched a news segment. Samuel Rollins named honorary ambassador to the United Nations for Global Labor Equity. Gregory scoffed. He was a janitor. A damn janitor. He turned off the TV, but the silence screamed louder. All he had left were the echoes of boardrooms he'd ruled with fear and the man who'd swept them clean. In contrast, Samuel spent his days sowing new seeds. The Elijah Initiative launched satellite offices around the country. Each one offered career training, mentorship, and wellness support for low-income workers. One morning, Samuel received a letter. Dear Mr. Rollins, I work in sanitation. I never finished school. People laugh at my job, but I watched your speech. I printed it out. I read it before every shift. Last week, I was promoted. I got my JED. Thank you for seeing me. Paul Samuel pinned the letter to his wall, right above his desk, right beside the mop. On the 5-year anniversary of his departure from Magnus Corp, the board invited him back for one final ceremony. They renamed the building the Samuel Rollins Tower. He stood beneath the new sign, hand on heart. Inside, Michaela now led with grace. Jamal expanded the foundation overseas, and on the wall of every floor hung a framed quote, "True leadership doesn't stand above others. It stands among them." Samuel retired to a quiet lakeside home, still woke at 5 a.m., still mopped his own kitchen floor. Some habits, he said, were sacred, and every Sunday he returned to the plaza where it all began. He'd sit on a bench, watch the people pass. Sometimes someone would stop and say, "Aren't you?" He'd smile, tap the mop pin on his lapel, and reply, just a cleaning man." But they knew better, and so did the world.